Hello, everybody. Bob Chick back with another edition of The Voice of Bodybuilding. I am joined by my partner in crime, Sugar Shawn Ray, Hall of Famer. What's up, bud?
I'm in the house, baby. Let's
As
do it.
usual, Shawn, this is powered by Panana, brought to you by Mutant and Celsius. Appreciate their ongoing support here at The Voice of Bodybuilding. You are representing, my friend. Brand new hat, I see, huh?
Yeah, man. Weak minds die, Bob. Weak minds
Weak
die.
minds die. I like that. I'm going to have to
I
write
guess they
that
do.
down. Well, while all eyes were on New York, my friend, you were sunning and funning and gunning in the Isle of Hawaii or
I was.
Oahu or
Yeah, man. Well, I wasn't sunning. It was actually raining, and the
ah,
business had to go on. I mean, a lot of people thought I was going out there for play, but I otherwise would have been there checking out the show. I think that was in New York over the weekend, but I just landed back here and had to follow online like a lot of other people, and it was very interesting. Hawaii, it never rains, and the one weekend I choose to go, Tuesday to
right?
Thursday, it rains the whole time. Cost me a visit out there to New York, to what, New Jersey, I should say, the New York
Yeah,
Pro in New Jersey. But yeah, some fireworks, I guess. Was there some fireworks out there?
always, bro. We'll get into that in just a moment. But first of all, big congratulations to Steve Weinberger. Another great show. It's in Teaneck, New Jersey, Sean. If you're
Yeah,
playing on the home game, but that's close enough. But it's still the New York Pro for those near and dear to the sport. Steve celebrating his 20th year in the biz of him putting on the show. Before that, we know it was the Night of the Champions, of course, and that's what started the legacy of the New York Pro. Some former great champs were in attendance. I saw Juan Morel. I saw Victor Martinez. Geez, there was all kinds of people
heard
kicking
Flex
around
Wheeler
there.
was out there.
Flex Wheeler was there. I
Anytime,
talked to
yeah.
Flex for a little bit. I saw Brian Moss out there, bro.
Ryan Moss, photographer extraordinaire, original owner of Better Bodies.
Better bodies, yeah. Michael Johansson, his crew from Gasp, taking that over, and they continue that legacy in itself. But all the stars were out. We had Mr. Olympias and Olympia champs, bikini champs.
Branch Warren was out
Everybody
there,
was there
wasn't
in
he?
New York, but a sold-out auditorium, bro.
Yeah, I heard Branch Warren was bebopping around out there too.
Branch Warren was there. Like I said, anybody who's anybody was there. It's a great show to go to. There was no question it was going to sell out, and we had a tight one, Sean. I know you weren't there, but I know you were glued to the internet, seeing
Yeah.
some results and what we were looking at on stage. So everybody knew this was going to basically be the Nick Walker show months ago, and he announced that he didn't give a crap about any special invite, that he would compete, he would earn his rightful place. Ultimately, that's what he did.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, on paper, he was the odds-on favorite. This is a show that he won when it was held down in Florida during the pandemic. He's now a two-time champion. I'm not sure who else has won that show twice, as a matter of fact. But
Juan Morel won it twice.
Juan, yeah, I think he's the only.
Yeah.
I think the Big Ramy, he only won it once.
Big Ramy won it. I don't think he won it twice, but that was
Yeah,
Big Ramy's debut, basically. Remember back then when he
that's
he
right.
popped on stage coming from the Middle East. Literally, his wife gave birth to their son, I believe it is. Might be a daughter. I might have that wrong, but their firstborn, literally days before he took the stage in New York and won.
Yeah, well, it's got a lot of history. Listen, that was Phil Heath's first pro win in
Yep,
2006 after he won my show out in Colorado.
that's
Followed up
right.
by Kai Green. Kai Green won that show. Darren Charles has won that. Victor Martinez. You have
Yes.
some colorful champions that have won the New York Pro held out in New Jersey now. It seems like it will forever be held in New Jersey. What I didn't like, Bob, was that they didn't turn down the house lights. That takes a little bit away from the finals presentation. Those lights the audience should be 100% in the darkness. It changes the picture for the audience, fan perspective. I think Steve needs to pay more attention to that. But I think Nick was the favorite going into the show. There were people that could have upset him that didn't. I heard it was very close, as a matter of fact. A
You
1 point
hear you hear
result.
correctly, bro. Yeah, 1 point decision going into the finals. That from Tyler Mannion himself. So the audience was literally on the edge of their seats because while Nick Walker was the presumed champ, let's face it, nobody had anybody else winning except for Nick Walker going into the show. But Martin Fitzwater showed up, your Detroit Pro winner. He took last year off and he made every second in the gym count because he came back with a new physique, a brand new shaved head. I know you're very fond of that. And more importantly, an Olympia qualification. So Martin was in a no lose situation going in there. But I think to say people were surprised that it was that close would be an understatement.
Am I mistaken that he's also trained by the same trainer that trains Nick?
You know what? You could be right because a lot of these guys are dealing with multiple people. I know George used to do that, and a lot of the other guys. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that in effect. If you can put your best talent out there and they're fighting for the win, that's a great bonus for the trainer. But that said, his physique stacked up. I wouldn't just say well. I mean, a lot of people, and myself included, I did not have Nick winning the show going in. I actually had a different cat winning, and that, of course, was Big Q, Quint Beastwood, as he's called,
Yeah,
Quentin Aria.
I was
And
right there with him.
unfortunately, man, Quentin I hate to say it, but he just blew it. Bro, it looked like he lost 20 pounds of muscle. I don't know if that was in pursuit of conditioning, lines in the glutes. I don't know. But when I saw him at check ins, I knew this guy was either going to be wiping everybody off the stage because he looks thin to me, small, and he's anything but small. But
Yeah.
or he was either ripped to shreds or he was flatter than a pancake. And guess what? This guy came out and you went, oh man, this ain't good.
Yeah, it's easy to do for a taller guy. Listen, the guy had all the potential of a Paul Dillette, but he's better. I think he actually has a better structure in terms of condition. Paul never
Yep.
got the kind of condition Quentin got in. But when Quentin got in that kind of condition, he lost all that volume, which Paul was very notorious for carrying on the stage. So he's going to have to figure out that. Again, he's relatively new on the scene. But
Yeah.
on paper, he was the guy that I agreed with you that he could do some damage, upset the apple cart. That didn't happen. He lost to a bunch of guys that were way smaller, way shorter. But because of that, they looked even bigger. So he's going to have to figure that out, and he's going to have to figure it out, unfortunately, on those types of stages, in those types of situations. If I'm Quentin, I don't take my foot off the gas. Listen,
Yep.
if I was him, I'd be on my way to California for this weekend's
I
competition.
I
Um,
believe either California and if I was
and
him, I might
Canada.
even
Yeah.
consider both. Canada, right? Go to
Well,
Toronto.
that's where
I
he's
would
from.
not be I would not be shocked, Sean, if and people are going to laugh at this because I was catching all kinds of smoke online. Like, oh, how'd your boy do? Oh, he wasn't even in the first call out. All that stuff. Look at people. If you're going to judge these guys, I'm going on potential. Okay, just like everybody else, I'm a fan of the sport. We see these guys, Sean, and we do our critique. Right? This guy has all the potential in the world to light it up. Mark my words, people. Okay, the chances of him qualifying and winning a show this year to the Olympia is very great. You can see a turnaround with a guy like that. Muscles are like balloons. You can go flat and you look horrible, and he did, admittedly. But you can also blow it up.
You're
In a
right.
week's time, this guy could show up in California and wipe everybody off the map, and or Toronto if he decides to go that way. But don't count him out yet, bro. We've had a lot of people that years ago ended up dead last in their first pro show, their first in their career. I don't know,
Sure.
guys like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, and some of these guys that ended up on the Olympia stage and didn't fare too well.
Yeah, and I mean, it happens. And look, when you make a prediction that's as bold as that, people can't wait to gloat. All right, what happened to your boy type thing. At the end of the day, bodybuilding shows are not won on potential; they're won on experience. Nick has
That's
the
right.
experience. Nick, a week prior to that show, didn't look anything like he looked in New York because if you had looked at him in
Right.
Pittsburgh, you would have thought, man, this guy's got a lot of work to do. I'm sure he suffered that last week. It paid off for him. And congratulations to him. Look, just because you don't pick him as number one doesn't mean that
Right.
you're against him. Like you don't like him. Like he
Well,
sucks. That's not
yeah.
even you're getting some of the flack that I'm used to. That's why my skin is so thick. These guys on the internet, they want to attack you when your prediction's wrong. And then they want to say, oh yeah, you're an expert when you're actually right. Look, the easy bet would have been Nick Walker on paper. But Nick put himself in a box in Pittsburgh by showing himself 1 week prior, and he certainly didn't look as good as he did in New York. Now, that being said, some of the other guys are not of the caliber of the Olympia. That was not the Olympia. That was the New York Pro. I
Right.
got fourth in the New York Pro and I dropped to 13th when the Olympia came around. That was my rookie mistake. It can happen to anybody. Now, when he goes to the Olympia, there's a lot of more obstacles to. He's got to get over Samson. He's got to get over Derek. He's got to get over Hottie. He's got to climb over Andrew Jack. The mountain gets so much bigger, and you got to do it in a 5 month period of time. Let the kid enjoy the victory. On paper, he was supposed to win, so he did exactly what he went there to do. Um, who's there? Who is there to fault someone just because you don't vote for the guy that's the obvious choice?
Well, we're going to explore that in just a moment, Sean, because you and I have been dealing with this for years. And for the record, your skin isn't thick because of the critique that you get. It's because of pizza. Let's just make sure
Yeah,
that's
that's true. You got
yeah.
it.
So
Yeah.
that said, Yeah, listen, people, again, we've said this 1,000 times, it'll be 1,000 times more. Our job is to critique, to analyze, to give our expert advice for people, both of us that have been in this industry literally our entire lives, okay? When I pick a Nick Walker to win, lose, or draw, first of all, I don't know Nick Walker very well other than seeing him at the shows, a quick hello.
Neither do I.
Right, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know him personally, okay? But when we make a pick for somebody to win or lose, Nick or anybody for that matter, but we're going to use him as an example. This is not anything on his personal. Okay, I've never said one word about him personally. Okay,
Right.
any critique or criticism or anything like that that I've ever put out to him or anybody else in this manner is how I think they're going to do on stage or what their physique looks like. Now, that's no different than if you have, I don't know, you're in a car show, you got a Ford, Shawn, and I go, hey man, nice looking car, but I got to be honest, I'm not a Ford guy, I'm a Chevy guy, right? Well, it doesn't mean I don't like you. It's your car I'm critiquing. The difference in bodybuilders is because we wear it, they tend to take it personally. Now, you had to deal with this especially. I had to deal with it for a short time, but you remember back in the day, of course, Shawn, when like Flex Magazine would come out with the Olympia prediction
Yeah.
issue, and they would actually have odds on the guys, 50 to 1, 25 to 1, 100 to 1, that type of thing. And you had to have thin enough skin, thick enough skin to deal with it. The guys today, Rick Wayne, who you remember as probably one of the greatest writers of all time, next to our good friend Peter McGuff, had an article one time that was under the title of "The Bodybuilder's Skin is so thin that you can see clear through to their paranoia." And I
Yeah.
always thought that was clever because it's like that is so true. These guys can't take critique these days. Why?
Well, I think because they get a lot of people in their DMs, on their feeds, in their head, telling them how great they are. And then when they see one critique that's not falling in line with the other 5,000 likes and favorable comments, they want to make a pariah out of that person, whether they know him or not. It's even worse when they do know who that person is. Uh, they consider you and I and a few others talking heads of the sport because we've been in this game for 40 years. Did you see what Shawn said? Did you see what Bob said? And then it gets in the athlete's head, and the athlete feels like they got to prove us wrong. I never competed to prove Peter McGough, Ricky Wayne, or any of those
Right.
guys wrong. I competed just to do the best that I could. And the people that didn't have me as favorites, I kind of chuckled to myself. I remember Peter McGough had said that, or not Peter, Lonnie Teeper,
Not,
um, said that, Sugar Sean shows up smooth, something like that. And this is the guy that's supposed to be my friend, and he's writing this about me in a magazine. I could care less. At the end of the day, I was doing photo shoots, I'm doing cover shots, I'm bodybuilding. But now you have these athletes where people are reporting to them what other talking heads are saying about them. And the athlete's skin is so thin that they personalize it. And it gets to a place where they won't even talk to you because they heard through a third party that you said they weren't going to be in the top five. And that's enough to
right.
end any kind of relationship. It's ridiculous.
Well, let's focus on the show itself. That said, listen, guys, get some thicker skin out there. Advices from two OG guys or old school guys. Listen, you're going to be dealing with. You're going to lose more shows than you win. All right, in
Yeah,
your
I said
competitive
that.
career, right? Unless you're Ronnie Coleman, right? Somebody like
Dexter.
that type of a guy, a Phil Heath. You're going to lose more than you're going to win. All right. The bottom line is this: we have a job to do. You have a job to do. Don't ever take it personally.
Yeah,
Okay. We're critiquing. We're giving our bets. Put a smile on your face. Listen, if you prove us wrong, great.
great.
I make no more money, Shawn, as you don't. Whether
Yeah,
Nick Walker wins or loses, or anybody else for that matter.
yeah,
That said, these guys came out. It was very apparent that Nick and Fitz were going to be fighting for this win. And you could see this coming a mile away. They matched up very good. Fitzwater, I got to give him credit, man. This kid came to play. His improvements were notable. He was sharper than Pittsburgh. Now, Nick was sharper than Pittsburgh as he needed to be because he was not sharp in Pittsburgh.
yeah.
They got next to each other. They did a round of turns. Now, again, you and I have talked many, many times about the scoring system, the judging criteria in the system. I don't see mathematically how Fitzwater loses. And this isn't because, again, I hate Nick. I'm not a hater, okay? I'm going by physiques. But I'm going by it with the old school notion that we're looking for some ideals: symmetry, proportion, shape, muscularity, presentation, all that stuff. And it should all go together, get added up, and that's how you get your final guy in the winner's circle. You come right out. Now, I'm going to put you in the judge's seat right now, Shawn. All
No.
right, We're going to check those boxes like we like to do, okay? But we're going to make smaller boxes, and this is a direction I would love to see the Pro League go in the future because I do think we need to overhaul the scoring system. Why? Because while I appreciate Tyler Mania going out there, our IFBB vice president, Tyler's doing a great job. And he's going out there and he's explaining after a show why the judges came to the conclusions they did. Well, I appreciate that, but there'd be a lot less explanation if the score sheets themselves would tell a story. So these guys come out. Let's go with symmetry first and foremost. So symmetry, we're just going to go with these two guys straight up, Shawn. Better symmetry, Fitzwater or Nick?
Yeah, Martin.
Okay.
Fitzwater.
Proportion, Fitzwater or Nick?
Fitzwater's put together in spades. I mean, he gets straight ones across the board.
Absolutely. It's 2-0 right now, all right? So we got symmetry, we got proportion. Shape,
Fitzwater again.
3-0, all right? Muscularity,
Big Nick.
Big Nick, easy, right? Now it's 3-1. Presentation.
Coin toss. Both are okay. So
Yeah,
it could be a tie.
Exactly. Yeah, but listen, both presented themselves very well for each of their respective physiques. All right, I didn't see anything strange there. All right, but you can see where the problem is going to come up real quick if you're starting to do the math, people. Right now, you start going to the individual posings. Okay, front shots are absolutely Fitzwater. Okay, because of Nick's shape, symmetry, that type of thing, his proportion is not as good as Fitzwater's. You can't really give him the front shots because those are Nick's weakest shots. So I got the front double by and the front lat spread to Fitzwater. You?
Yeah, I agree.
Side shots, side chest, side tricep.
Nick, I go with Nick on that because he's thicker.
I got to be absolutely right. I've given those to Nick. And I've given him credit. It's amazing how we never get any credit for the credit we give right to these guys. Yeah. But they want to focus on the one negative instead of the 10 things I said about this kid that's good. Side shots, absolutely Nick all day. He is very, very hard from the side to beat. I don't care who it is, Hottie, Derek. He could literally stand with anybody on the stage from the side. Agreed or not?
No, he can't. He's thick enough.
No, he's thick as thick can be, right? Now we turn to the back, okay? I thought this is about even, give or take. Now, Nick is very formidable from the back because the discrepancy with the upper body and the lower body doesn't come into play as much from behind for whatever reason that is. Nick is great from the back, but so is Fitzwater. He was sharper than Nick in the back, while not as heavily muscled. But I'm going to say you might have a toss-up on that one.
Yeah, that'd be a fair assessment. I mean, look, Nick's top-heavy from the rear. His legs are much better when they're from the side. From the rear, the hamstrings kind of disappear, and so do the calves. Yeah. The lower extremities are nothing pleasing to look at, so you wind up looking more at Martin Fitzwater. So if it's close, you can call it a tie. But I mean, to the eye, I think Martin still is more pleasing to look at.
Front abdominal.
I'm going with Martin. I know Nick's got those chunky abs, but that's it. Yeah. They're chunky and it's a blocky waist. And so for that, it distracts from the look.
And of course, the most muscular. Now, this is a shot that I thought Nick would actually dominate, but I almost call it a draw, and I'll tell you why. Yes, I know Martin doesn't have as much muscle as Nick, but there's more. The most muscular is a all-encompassing pose. Yes. It's head to toe, the most muscular. That's what it is. Let me tell you, Fitzwater was a crab shot was good for him, but he was doing a single arm, a shot like this here, and it was phenomenal. Lines in his thighs, serratus was in, muscularity all over the place, good vascular, everything. So I mean, I'd almost call that one straight up, even if you gave it to Nick. If I start adding up all these points and things, I got Fitzwater by a point. It's a one-point decision. I think it should have gone the other way.
So here's the thing: if it's that close, and we're splitting hairs, and the kid wins by 1 point, we're talking about Martin Fitzwater with no Olympia experience.
No.
A guy that hasn't stood next to Derek, Hottie, or Samson. Nick coming off of a 1-year hiatus, who won the Arnold Classic, 2-time New York Pro champion. Is Martin Fitzwater that good? Or is Nick getting a little bit too much hype too soon because that was such a close show? I mean, Nick claims to be almost at his all-time best. And if that's his best, what is that going to look like next to Hottie? You know, I
Well,
mean, is
you
is Fitzwater a top 5 guy in the Olympia on his first time out? What are we really talking about here?
you bring up an excellent point, Sean. What people are losing in this is, let's just say Nick was at his all-time best, and not even. It doesn't really matter whether he was or he wasn't. Okay, this is a guy who's been as high as third at the Olympia. Fitzwater, obviously, he's not a rookie, but obviously he's had to get his way. Took a year off, got back, looked spectacular, great. But nobody has brought up Martin Fitzwater in any scenario that I've heard of potential top 6 Olympians. Yes,
Correct. Right.
so
What are we
this
talking
was a
about?
1 point decision. That was announced by Tyler Mannion, okay, and every
Yeah.
other expert that was there. To be honest, because I was there, Sean, most of the quote experts, officials, I'm not naming anybody in particular, but these are high up people, had Fitzwater after prejudging.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was that close, whether you like one guy or whether you like the other guy. For Nick to squeak out a win, a 1 point win over Martin Fitzwater, and this is not a knock on Martin Fitzwater, all right, or either one of them for that matter, puts things in perspective. So are we now talking about Fitzwater as a top 6 candidate at the Olympia?
Top 5.
I
Top
mean,
5.
this
I mean,
right?
either we're talking about him as a top 5, or this was just some type of a one-off fluke and the guy just got lucky. I mean, he had him on. Look, we saw Tyson Fury lose his title over the weekend to an
Badly,
obscure boxer out of the Ukraine, and he loses all, everything. That's clear. You could see the knockout almost happen, and the guy was just stabbing
sure.
around the ring. Nick, this was not as obvious. This was not an obvious victory for Nick. It's debatable. People are still talking about it right now. Nick's got his fans saying it was a slam dunk. He's going to need a dose of reality. If it's that close with Nick, how close will it be standing next to Hottie or Derek or Big Samson? So, yeah, either Fitzwater is a legitimate top 5 conversation piece, or this is a one-off type of a fluke, and the lighting, everything's going to change by the time we get to Vegas, because the lighting will be proper, and you will have other judges from other areas that are going to look at it with a different set of eyes. Was Nick a favorite? Did that sway the judges? Sometimes, we've been known to say, hey, it's like a hometown victory for Nick. He's got his crew out
Right.
there. Would the Olympia lineup see it the same way? The judges? I don't know, but I think Nick right now either needs to reassess, was that my best, or is there more in the tank? He has to have more in the tank if he's going to go to the next level.
Well, that's going to be the question that gets answered. For the record, I don't believe Nick has ever beat Hottie or Derek. Derek new to the Open, so that's they've only competed once, I think, if that,
These are former 212
or
bodybuilders
maybe
we're
not. No,
talking about.
that was yeah. Nick has been in 2 Olympias, so hey, he only would have faced Derek once, right? So,
Right, correct.
that said, those 2 guys, I don't know if he can get by. I mean, they're pretty. That's 1 and 2 in the world. But now you throw Samson in there because he's come into his own. Yes, he still needs to dial in a little bit better, but that physique it can't be ignored. That's 3 guys right there, and now you're going to throw in guys like Andrew Jacked. Hunter Labrada was there, bro, at about 300 pounds, and Hunter looks like he's been sleeping in the gym because, bro, he's big. I mean, he's big as a house. Don't forget, Hunter beat Nick on the Olympia stage with a 4th place to Nick's 5th just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and it's a long run from May to October. A lot can happen. I mean, Nick right now should be licking his chops, not taking his foot off the gas, and training smarter, not harder. But that says a lot for Fitzwater. I think what Nick did for Nick is motivate him. Nick motivated Martin by that show being as close as it was. Martin now believes he can beat Nick. So he's going to train with a different type of a vigor and venom getting ready for the show. And it does set a very interesting stage for October, because, again, I've said this. Some people can rise to the level of what the Olympia is, and we're talking 60 years. You don't
Yeah.
think you don't think Derek Lunsford, being a new father, wants to hold on to that title? You don't think Hottie Chupin, who's already made history in bodybuilding, wants to come back and take that title back? Who was the other guy to do that? Jay Cutler, right? Back in
Yeah.
2009 when he regained his
Jay's the only
title.
one that's taken the title back,
Yeah.
correct?
So yeah, Hottie could make history if he does it again on the biggest stage with the biggest
Yeah.
audience in 60 years. What a huge celebration that would be. Derek winning it again. Doesn't Derek live in Las Vegas now? I don't
Derek is
know.
in. No, he's in
Florida?
Florida, isn't he?
Yeah, he might be
Yeah.
in Florida. Nick is in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Either way, I think this is a show where you have to sit back as an athlete and think like whatever it is you've done up to this point, everything has to happen in October. It's going to be the biggest audience with the most talk, with probably the most lasting impression on our sport. So there's a few guys that can make history on that occasion, and Nick's got to think: is it me? And if he thinks it's me, he's got to do this for his family, for his legacy, after sitting out for a year. If it's Hunter for his family and his legacy, he's got a few more obstacles to overcome, physique wise. You can still see the small pec tear. Levrone was
Yeah.
an excellent guy to be able to mask it. Hunter's is not super visibly, but he's got to figure out how to hide that a little bit better, not sweat as much,
Yeah.
and make it through those rounds that Steve puts him through, because Hunter is one of the first guys to start breaking the sweat. So he's got to figure out
Yeah.
that water retention problem when he goes through the motions. And then again, Hadi Chupin is not letting up. I mean, Hadi Chupin just seems like, you know what, that muscle maturity, his legacy would be cemented. We just had a terrible accident. I'm not sure if you're watching the news, but the president of Iran died in a helicopter
Worse,
crash like
worse
Kobe
than a
Bryant.
terrible accident. He's actually dead. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was an act. I mean, well, we don't know. It could be a conspiracy. But at the end
yeah,
of the day,
we really
this
don't know.
we don't know which direction that country's going to go after this incident. But Hadi's got to process all of that stuff, and they got to find this ray of hope. He may be their guy that they hitch their wagon to, and they cheer for Hadi. And Hadi's propelled by keeping Iran in a relevant, competitive conversation as far as the sport is concerned. He's got a lot on his plate to try to recapture that title. And then you throw in Fitzwater, who's just, he can't be that guy that says, I'm happy to be here. He's now got to have the confidence that, shit, I almost beat Nick Walker, and I think I can do it again in October. This is an
And,
Olympia, October the 12th, that you don't want to miss.
and listen, as he should, right? Listen, Martin Fitzwater has every right in this world right now to be on top of the world, shutting it down and a little bit of rest, not too much, and then he's got a Olympia preps. But I would feel very confident if I was Martin walking on that Olympia stage, knowing that a guy who's been as high as third, I almost just beat, and
Yeah.
arguably a lot of people did have it beating him. So that said, Shawn, it was not just a two-man race because Tonio Burton showed up ready to fight. He's not the biggest guy, but the analogies of or the comparisons, I should say, to Dexter Jackson aren't that far off. Dexter was a little bit more superior, obviously, but Tonio was coming into his own. He's put on good muscle, looked good head to toe, great presentation, ends up in third place, and but it wasn't easy by a hair, and I use that because of the next guy. Beef Stew ended up taking fourth against Tonio. Now, he thought he probably should have beaten Tonio, if I'm guessing by the look on his face on stage when he was announced as fourth, but he's got nothing to be ashamed about. He presented himself very well. Hate to keep harping on it, but I'm not sure the hair helps the matter because, listen, we're in a sport of appearance. No matter how you dice it, whether it's your hair, your skin, your muscularity, your trunks, it all comes into play. No, they're not. It's not a beauty contest for the girls. No, it's not. A hair contest for the guys. That type of thing. But they are looking at your general overall appearance. Everything kind of gets added up and thrown into the mix. This is a matter of proportions, right? A big giant fro, okay, is going to make your shoulders look smaller. I don't care how you dice it.
Yeah, I really do think he's going to have to do. He can't just go, hey, it's a physique contest, because we know it's much more than that, especially with the ladies. Otherwise, they don't have hair and makeup. They don't have $1,000
Right?
bikinis. Um, if that look ain't working for you and you're trying to scratch your head and go, what's wrong with me? Well, why don't we just start with maybe a different look? That might not hurt him. I know, like Bumstead and Hidetani Yamagishi, they're doing everything they can do to stay relevant and look the part,
Yeah.
because they got companies they represent, products that they endorse, and a look that they're trying to appeal to the masses. And when we say the masses, you cannot exclude them, because the masses include the judges, right? But he has nothing to hold his head down about. He got beat by Tonio, clear as day for me. It was Tonio,
Yeah.
then it was Beef Stew. So his hair, even if he shaved it off, wasn't going to help him in terms of the body being the number one thing. Tonio can go to California this weekend, I think, walk in and
I
win that
believe he
show.
is. Yeah.
I believe he won it last year. Um, and
Yes,
and if
that's
I
right.
recall, he's also Tonio. If I'm Tonio, I'm coming to California to win, and I'm going right back over to Toronto the week after to try to win out there in Toronto, because he could win both, and he may as well, because when he gets to the Olympia, he's going to be playing cleanup over there. The guys are just too big. He's going to be in very deep water. Get as much as you can while you can, and maybe stop some of these other guys from qualifying. You're right. He's very reminiscent of a Dexter Jackson. If Dexter Jackson, if he were Dexter coming off of the third at this show, Dexter would be in California and he would be in Toronto, and wouldn't be surprised if Dexter would go to Texas as well. Tonio has
Well,
that type of a
yeah.
physique that he can run the gamut and get his money now and keep these guys from qualifying, and he can still be a participant in the Olympia. He will not be a threat to the top 6 of the Olympia lineup. So get what you can while you can.
Yeah, no, I think that's solid. And even though he had a very good appearance at the Olympia last year, yeah, it would be very difficult for him to take on that projected top 6. Let me tell you something. Stuart Sutherland, Beef Stew, has got a lot of muscle. He's a big guy. He's got a lot of muscle. He presents himself very well. The midsection isn't the greatest. It kind of throws his physique off a little bit, needs a little bit more detail. But, that's a guy that literally could be in California and or Toronto. Should absolutely, I hope he's not done right now until the end of the year. He doesn't need major overhauling. He needs fine tuning. The guy probably the least heralded was a guy you probably never heard of. It goes by Christian Wolski from Poland, who ended up in 5th place. But when you look at this guy's physique, he's got all the attributes. He's very well put together. Again, not a guy that anybody was on anybody's radar. Nobody really knows who he is. For all I know, is his first pro show. I don't know anything about his background, but he had a very nice physique, and definitely a physique that you could see that if he continues to work himself up, could easily be in the top 2 or 3, or even pushing for a win at one of the shows coming up. But I want to give him a shout out, just because that's not a guy you're going to hear a lot, as everybody's going to talk about Nick, versus Martin, of course, all week long.
Well, look, if I'm not in that conversation about the Olympia, again, like Tonio, there's about 4 or 5 shows that I would be focused on to try to run up the tab. The California Pro, I remember these pro shows got extra prize money. I'm not
Yep.
sure exactly what it is, but I think they're all north of 20 grand.
Yep.
California Pro, Toronto Pro, and let's not forget about our good buddy over at Oxygen Gym, Bader Budai's Dubai Pro Show.
Yep.
I believe that's a significant amount of money over there in Dubai that they're giving away at the end of July 27th to 28th, I
I'll
believe
be
it
there.
is. That prize money is significant. I would not take my eye off of that one. And then, of course, you have Texas right before that, and then we go into the Tampa Pro. There's a number of shows, if these guys strategically map it out. Not a number of them, just one. Tonio's the guy. If he's the new Dexter, I'm trying to get with my sponsors and my team going, okay, how do we want to do this? Because when it comes to the Olympia, Tonio could probably be in the top 10 like he was last year. He'll be at the bottom of the top 10 guys. He's not going to be in the top 6. That's a professional opinion on my side. But now it becomes a strategic business decision that why would he want to just qualify for the Olympia and shut it down to go to the Olympia to participate? Top
Well,
7, 8, 9, or 10. That's realistic for that kid, but he could also get maybe 3 or 4 victories under his belt if his mind is in the right place, his calendar's set out, and he's not sitting here thinking that he's got to get in the top 6 of the Olympia. Go get all these other pro show wins. I would.
Men's physique, Ali Bilal in a return match from Pittsburgh ends up victorious over Vitor Chavez. Ali presents a fantastic physique, and I do believe he can give the champ, Ryan Terry, a run for his money this year. I tell you, not a lot of people knew who he was before Pittsburgh. He kind of came out late in the year last year smoking, and he just put 2 back to back. But I think he's going to contend in that first call out without question.
Yeah, men's physique is getting more and more competitive every single time I see these shows. And for me, they're guys I don't even know their names, but man, they're legit. The delts, the
Well,
abs, yeah, everything looks really good on that kid.
Well, Sean, in a division that you might have ruled the world had it been around back then, the 212 did not disappoint. These guys were all in great condition, in great shape. Kareth Baggio, the defending champ, came back, and he looked absolutely phenomenal when he came out. The only problem he had was Ole Krivyi from the Ukraine.
It's a big problem.
Came out. What a story he's got. This is a guy who's actually fought in the Ukrainian war. I mean, he's actually been there and done that, and he was able to get to the States and basically train unobscured for 3 months which was probably like heaven to this guy because he's literally from war-torn Ukraine. So I mean, he's right in the mix. And he said he was able to, clear his mind, just train and not worry about, stuff back home. And he came out victorious by 1 point. But man, was he in condition. I've seen him in shape before, but this guy was sliced to the bone.
Yeah, I only saw a couple of pictures. I didn't see his video. Like there's been videos going on, but he is legit. And Sean Clarita cannot rest, thinking that he's just got Keon to deal with when it comes to the 212 at the Olympia. Keon was like one of those guys, kind of like Cedric McMillan. If he ever gets it right, he can win. Well, he got it right and he won. This guy right here, he's one of those guys that could come in there and be in that conversation instantly.
Speaking of Keon, I saw him there. He was kicking around, big as ever, biggest I've ever seen him in an off season. Not that he needs more size of that fantastic physique, but and your boy Sean Clarita was there hawking some shoes, bro. He's got the brand new GK Killer shoes out there, so he was doing the business of bodybuilding. Always good to see. In classic physique, it was Matt Grego who would get his revenge on Eric Lisboa from just a week earlier. So, and I bring that up for a couple of reasons. For people don't think a week makes a difference, just like Nick was catching flack. And I defended Nick in that. All right, talking about Nick Walker, but when people were giving him crap at Pittsburgh, oh, he's way off. Oh, he's going to blow it. Oh, his belly's out. Is this, that. It's people, just relax, okay? 6 days is a long time when you're down in contest shape. To reel it in, some guys hold more water than others. He's got a different protocol. Don't know. But I'll tell you how much difference it made. He went from that to winning the New York Pro, whether you agree with it or not. And Matt Grego, who was leading Eric last week in Pittsburgh and then gave it up at night, he came in soft and it got switched. For those who don't think that the confirmation round is ever being scored, I can assure you, because I had the results in my hand, and it was Matt Grego that was ahead, winning the show, and it literally got switched around late at night. But he got his revenge, Sean, and he ends up on top this week in New York.
Well, and that's just another reminder, man. That show is not over until it's over. You cannot go in and read your social media comments and listen to your family. My mom had me winning every show I ever competed. You cannot rest until they actually open that envelope or that number is being called on the stage, and so many guys do. This is just another reminder. If you're in the hunt, if you're in the conversation, keep your foot on the gas and it over to the fat lady sings.
Well, Sean, your final thoughts on Nick being chosen over Fitzwater?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, is it sending any message? Are we reading too much into it? Is that a physique that should have won? Is that a physique that overall is better? At the Olympia level, should we be looking at the ideals of the physique as set forth by our predecessors and, the rules that were set forth representing symmetry, shape, proportion, size, all that stuff? So message, wrong message, no message at all.
Well, I mean, is this where I quantify, hey guys, this is just my opinion? Do I apologize before what I'm about to say? Listen, that's not my type of physique. It never was. And there are guys that fall in that category. Branch Warren is one of them. Rich Gaspari is another. That doesn't mean that they're not good enough to be champions. I mean, Branch won the Arnold Classic twice, Rich Gaspari was a 3-time Olympia runner-up. I was glad that wasn't what the Olympia was going to become, because I would not want to aspire to be like those guys. They represented a blue collar, rugged, um, rough type, gnarly, all the adjectives that I'm not about. So, of course, I'm not going to cheerlead for that type of physique to be the leader of the pack. I came up behind guys that had words like beauty, aesthetic, pretty, shapely, symmetrical. I'm talking about Bob Paris and Matt Mendenhall, Muhammad McAway, Lee Labrada. Those guys aren't there anymore. Those adjectives are no longer being used. Martin Fitzwater seems to be bringing a little combination of that back, which is why I think he fared so well. But the people that made Nick are the people that kept Nick there. Nick deserves his day in the sun. Is that something I want to be the premier physique representing all of what bodybuilding is about? He would never get my vote. Twice on Sunday, he wouldn't get my vote. That doesn't take away from the fact that he's a blue-collar, hardcore bodybuilder. Doesn't mean he's not worthy of the New York Pro Championship or the Arnold Classic and the future accolades that are coming. I wouldn't want that to represent the premier physique in the Mr. Olympia and put that name, that physique, online with Lee Haney, Dexter Jackson, all the guys that have been there before, and then you plop in Nick because it's a different conversation when you put Nick in there amongst those types of physiques that are complete from front to back, shapely, balanced, proportion. And we can't necessarily say all of those things about Nick. Nick's got a long career. He's doing the best of what he can do. As an Olympia representative, he couldn't get my vote. I couldn't go there.
Well, at the end of
There
the
are guys that
day,
are
Nick
better.
Walker is your New York Pro winner. We're going to give him credit where credit's due. Nick, congratulations. I actually met Nick's parents backstage.
Huge fans.
I think they were a little set off. They probably knew I wasn't the biggest fan of his
Yeah,
physique,
man.
but
Listen,
um,
do you have to be? Do you have to be? I mean, whatchamacallit? Drake just lost $540,000 betting on Tyson Fury.
right.
I mean, is that a crappy bet? It was a safe bet, but he lost the money. Nonetheless, this is a sport of
Well,
whose opinion is more valuable than the next when it's a sport of subjectivity.
and the only opinions that matter aren't yours or ours. It's the judging panel down there,
Yeah.
and one more guy seemed to think that Nick was better, and that's cool. But no, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Walker were very nice and pleasant, and their son's a hell of a bodybuilder. So congratulations to Nick, and that's
By the
going to
way,
wrap things up for.
they call him the mutant for a reason. I've never seen
Well,
a beautiful sculptured mutant in my life, right? So
yeah.
he's just the antithesis of beauty, and that's okay. It's just not in my wheelhouse.
You know, that's a great point too. If you're going to go by the mutant, I mean, you kind of got to wear it, right? Like you're not Bob Paris out there,
Yeah.
okay? And that's cool. So, but listen, at the end of the day, wins is what counts, and now he's qualified. We'll see him on the Olympia stage where he belongs, because whether you like him or hate him, it doesn't really make any difference. This guy belongs on the Olympia stage, and I felt so bad for him last year when I had to give him a shout out. He was down there literally right in front of me in a wheelchair. I mean, how
That was
fast a
hard.
year goes, right? This poor kid, tears in his eyes, because he should have been up there fighting for the title, and instead he was, fighting to get back on his feet. So, all things told, again, congratulations to Nick Walker. Congratulations to Big Steve, Pro League. Jim Mannion was there. Tyler, of course, JM, the entire crew. But that'll wrap things up for another edition. Shawn, we got to do a quick turnaround this week, so hoping you can join me later on in the week. We've got to do our next installment of Olympia 60 as we get into the 1970s as we
Yes.
celebrate 60 years on the Olympia stage.
Yeah. I mean, we're there. Started at 65. When we get to the 70s, we're talking Arnold, we're talking Franco, and we're talking Frank Zane.
I think we finished off with Sergio, so we'll take up where we left off there with, Arnold beating Sergio. Should he have beaten him in 1970? A whole lot of people think it should have gone the other way. 71, 72, 70. Now we get into the Arnold era, and that sparks a whole nother conversation. So for Shawn Ray, I'm Bob Chick. That's going to do it for another edition of The Voice of Bodybuilding.